What can slicing a watermelon teach us about design? Well, it turns out quite a lot. So today I'm joined by the one and only Vitaly Friedman, founder of Smashing Magazine, who spent years obsessing over not just digital interfaces, but the everyday puzzles of life. And in this conversation, we explore how his quirky quest to find the perfect way to slice a watermelon connects to learning, experimenting, and surviving the messy realities of UX design. So if you've ever felt stuck, uncertain, or overwhelmed in your career, this episode is a reminder that the journey of figuring things out, whether it's design or in your kitchen, is where the real growth happens. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome. I am super stoked to have you. You ever ship a feature that should have never seen the light of day, or survived a sprint planning where nothing got planned? Or maybe you just said, let's circle back under your breath for the 50th time this week. Well, you, my friend, have earned a Merit-ish badge. Introducing the Beyond UX Design Merit Badges, a vintage-inspired sticker series for UX designers, PMs, and engineers who have seen things. Choose from 3 sets: soft skills, sharp tongue, the Cult of Figma initiation, Pixel Pusher survival kit, and more to come soon, so stay tuned. Each set of 5 badges celebrates the chaos, the coping, and the conference calls that should have been DMs. Stick them on your laptop and flaunt them at your stand-up. Show the world you made it out of Q2 with your sanity mostly intact. Get 1 set of 5 stickers for $12 or 2 sets for $20 at beyonduxdesign.com/badges. Just promise me one thing: send pics and show me where you stick them. How often do you stare at a blank Figma canvas, unsure where to start? Well, this episode is brought to you by Mobbin, the ultimate UI and UX design inspiration library. Mobbin gives you access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI and user flows from apps that you love, and content is added weekly, so you never have to start from scratch again. Quickly find exactly what you need, search by app category, UI patterns, or even specific features. And my team and I use Mobbin daily at work to find useful patterns, and it helps my team work much more efficiently. So you're ready to level up your design process? Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and Zoe for all their support. And if you want to join these fine folks and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. Get instant access to those videos right now for as little as $5 a month. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. So my guest today, I think, needs no introduction, but the one and only Vitaly Friedman joins us today to talk about how his quest to find the perfect way to slice a watermelon is a perfect metaphor for education, and how we need to take learning into our own hands, because if we don't do it, who the hell will?
Exactly. So I think at this point, Jeremy, first of all, I have to say, wow, I really want you to do voiceover for everything that I do. I want this be on my podcast like nonstop, like anything. I think, you know what? Notebook LM should just take your voice. I would listen to anything, but I would listen to anything from chemistry and to anything really. I think it's breathtaking. I couldn't stop listening. I just missed the signal when I should start. So here we go. Hello, Jeremy. Wonderful to have you.
Thanks, man.
Wonderful to have me here, I guess. But I'm really pleased to be here.
Perfect. Yeah, we're both happy to be here. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. You know, it's funny. I don't know if you knew this, but I'm actually doing voiceover coaching, trying to get into voice acting and voiceover work.
This is already incredible. I mean, it's like it's totally out of control. I'm sold. That's it.
Right on, man. I appreciate that. Well, I'm definitely open to work for you and do whatever voiceover work you need. So I appreciate that. So Vitaly, I am so excited. Like I said, man, I don't think you need an introduction. I've got a little bio here. I think we could just skip it, just get into this, because I am so excited to just talk to you about all this stuff: education, the man, the myth, the legend. Smashing Magazine.
Jeremy, I have to say, I don't know what I'm doing in life. This has kind of been my motto for the last, 20, 25 years or so. One thing that I do know is that I'm really curious about things. And so what you mentioned in the beginning, like watermelon, this is just a part of the story. There is way more to that, because sometimes I just get obsessed. I guess in a good way, at least partially. I get really obsessed just trying to figure out what would be a nicer way to do things, so a better way to do things. And I'm not talking about efficiency necessarily, but just to be more effective. Sometimes I just want to make things inefficiently but effective in a way. Does it even make sense? I just want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
really enjoy this moment of just doing things, although I know that there are ways to do it better and cleaner and whatever. But then this moment of exploration, discovery, if you like, oh, this is so exciting to me. And it does have quite a merit, I would say, when it comes to watermelons. This has a very deep place in my heart.
Well, let's hear it then. You've got an interesting story. You and I talked a little bit ago. We had a conversation and we started talking about this your search for the way to cut the most effective way to cut a watermelon. Tell us a story. You said there's more to it, so I want to hear it. We didn't get that deep into it when we were talking before, so
Okay,
let us hear it.
so first of all, this must be a communication. Like this must be a collaborative effort, right? So Jeremy, you are going in the supermarket, and in the supermarket, you find a bunch of watermelons, and they're staring at you. They kind of really draw your attention, and this is a nice day, and you want to get a proper, good watermelon. What would be the ultimate characteristics, attribute, with which you would be building a matrix in your head to define the ultimate selection, or I would say paradigm for choosing the right watermelon? Do you have a signal that you're listening to choose that perfect watermelon? Because this is where the selection of watermelon starts.
I love this. This is a great point because what's the point in finding the perfect way to cut a watermelon if the watermelon you have is junk to begin with?
If the watermelon is not good enough, exactly, we are on the same tuned there, right? So how would you choose one? Some people would, knock, and sometimes they pretend to be knocking just to get kind of the hollow sound, but then you kind of need
The
to
hollow
understand
sound,
where
right?
you knock as well. From my understanding, I might be totally wrong. There are different types, of course, of watermelons. What I'm always looking for, and this is probably the most important thing that you can actually remember, this is the things that you will learn today. Look for a bright yellow spot. The bigger, the better. Typically, people would dismiss it because they would feel like this is maybe too ripe or not ripe enough or anything like that. Bright yellow spot. That's very important. Now, also another thing that you probably want to pay attention is the stripes. Sometimes you would see the darker stripes, sometimes you see brighter, lighter stripes, but you kind of need to have the kind of just the balance. The darker in general, at least in my book, is better. Those wonderful people who are listening to this and happen to be experts in watermelons. I'm not sure if there is a specific industry
The
or
Venn diagram for watermelon experts
yeah,
and UX
yeah.
designers, I think, is very
Maybe there
similar.
is like a whole, I don't know, scientific branch exploring all the different types of watermelons. I'm sure that some people are very, very excited about that. But what I'm also looking for, in the end, like you have on the tail, sometimes you have a tail, like for watermelon, and sometimes you do not. Have you
Where it's
noticed that?
attached to the vine.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Ah.
usually I would go the one without the tail, not because it's clipped or cut off, but because it doesn't have one, unless it maybe does have one and I just don't notice. So there is that. And then you need to really knock. But what you're looking for at this point is not just the sound of hollowness, it just must really knock back. You must feel that it is alive, right? It must feel that it actually comes back to you and it kind of speaks to you. This is how you choose a watermelon. And then you just get the watermelon, right? That would be pretty much my spirit. And I've been practicing this for a while. And then you go home, right? And you go home and you get it like all cleaned up. And usually if it actually has a bit of ground or something like that in it, that's all good. But then you clean it up and then you put it on a wonderful, like a wooden board, cupboard in front of you. And you need to choose the right knife. Like, there is this Japanese knives when you just do the swoosh and then the watermelon just goes into parts. The best promise, like it's the same like with coffee, the promise of a good watermelon comes from the sound of swooshingness. So when you take the knife and you can almost hear the watermelon cracking, oh, that's
I know
potential
exactly what
that
you're
you
talking
can
about. Yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
You hear incredible potential. At this point, of course, you don't know if it's going to smell well and all of that because you do need to smell at this point, and then you will know, right? But then comes the big mystery. And this brings us to the ultimate dilemma. So you have these two slices, two halves of a watermelon, right? And they both deserve attention. I think that we all agree to that. But how would you cut them in a way that you would present in a birthday party? You don't want to have all these parts and green chunks around, right? Because they are kind of all dropping and dripping and all of that. That's just not nice. And I think from my research so far, at least, there are 13 or 14 established ways of how you could cut a watermelon. One of them is the easiest one, which is just slices. You just go in and you do this little thing where you hold the half of the watermelon and then you just slice in parts with a knife, right? That's also quite dangerous, I have to say, especially if you have a Japanese knife. Um, you probably don't want to do that. Some people would take it extreme. I mean, this is what I would call extremists in terms of watermelons, where they would take a spoon, Jeremy, believe it or not, they would take a spoon and spoon out the flesh of a watermelon, leaving so much within the watermelon never to be eaten. Disrespectful towards a watermelon. Would you agree with that?
Not only the watermelon, but the farmers who raise the watermelon. This beautiful,
For sure.
wonderful, sweet, juicy watermelon.
Yeah,
You can
right.
smell that
So
milk.
that, but I mean, I guess just to make it really complex, right? And I mean, we could really go for a while here. We've been speaking about watermelons now for 10 minutes or so, I believe.
Best 10 minutes of podcasting I think I've ever heard.
What we ultimately are after are perfect rectangles.
Perfect
We
rectangles.
need perfect rectangles. Imagine a beautiful plate that you would present to your guests who are coming into their birthday party or something. You can't just throw a watermelon flash into them. They deserve respect. They deserve attention, right? So that means we need to figure out a way to really cut it in beautiful, perfect squares. What would be your strategy to do that?
Oh, geez. So this is hard because it's a circle, generally speaking, right? So
It is.
an
So you need
oval-ish,
to make squares, perfect squares, perfect squares.
perfect squares. I would use geometry.
All right.
I would cut it halfway, cut it in halves again, and get triangles. Then I would
Okay.
I would try to figure out how to take that triangle and cut that in a square.
Yeah, but then you cut out a lot of parts, right? Because it's like it's.
Well, then I was thinking you waste a lot of meat. But
Yeah.
then, what I would do, I would go back and cut it. I would use the rest for a salad or something and chop it up into smaller pieces. But it
Ah, I
wouldn't be a
see, I see.
perfect square. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a good question. How would you do it?
So my strategy is very simple, right? So I would take a half, I would flip it on its head, right? And then I would just slice all over, right?
Oh,
But
go
then you
in
have big
deep.
sizes, like big slices. From there, obviously, you can actually do one more thing, which I think is very important. Before you even turn it upside down or anything, so you basically slice it, so you have these kind of relatively big slices, right? But then you flip your knife and you do the same, but vertically, right? And so you have, I mean, if you kind of slice it perfectly, you get in the middle perfect squares. And then, of course, you have not so perfect squares on the edges. And it's very
Right.
fast, right?
Wow. Okay. And you get like cubes, like perfect cubes, I think, right? Yeah. So like I make a
Yes.
beautiful.
But some people adopted a slightly different strategy where, there is this shapes for baking, right? So they could be like a square. You could do that, but
Very photogenic plate.
that's a bit of cheating, wouldn't you say?
This is really interesting. So let's talk a little bit more about this because we
Sure.
could talk about the education design piece
Yeah,
later. I
of
really
course.
I want to learn all about your watermelon. So you mentioned before, there's aspects of people wasting the meat and you hate to see go to waste. What do you do with the rind? Do you do anything with the rind? Do you pickle it or keep it for something else?
Not,
Or
not really. I guess I'm just not a big fan of it. I guess, but oh my, I will eat everything. So the squares will remain there, but everything else, I will eat with a lot of pleasure.
I
But
love it, dude.
there is one thing that I think is highly underestimated, and this is going to change your life forever. Do you know that you can actually grill a watermelon?
I have had grilled watermelon at a restaurant. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh, it's so
Oh,
good. Yes.
yeah. So this can be something, especially if you add, let's say, some goat cheese or something on top of that.
Ooh, yes.
We're going to places. I think that sky is the limit at this point, right? You can also do the same with the regular, like the cantaloupe melon and so on and so forth. But, oh yeah, I think that this is a very undiscovered world of watermelons. I think a lot of potential there.
So let me throw this at you. I had at a restaurant when I had the grilled watermelon, there was I want to say they made like almost like a caprese salad with it with instead of tomatoes and watermelon. So it was grilled. Then they put mozzarella with some basil and a balsamic glaze on
Wow,
top.
this
Oh man,
just changes
I'm telling-
everything.
damn, dude.
Wow.
I'm telling you, man. It was whew, So
Okay,
I love
okay.
this. Let me ask you this then.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about how your search for the perfect way to cut a watermelon translates or is a metaphor for the way we tend to treat, I don't want to say education because then we think of school and we think of teachers, but more of learning, more of how we go about self-learning perhaps, as designers often do. We get out of school, we're never done. We find courses, we find books, we find mentors and coaches and things like that. And we try to teach ourselves certain things. Unfortunately, we aren't taught those things in school. I'm curious, have you ever thought about that as a metaphor for how one goes about learning and just life itself, just as it relates to just uncovering new things and ideas and
Yeah,
ways to work?
I think for me this it might all sound silly, like we pay so much attention to watermelons, but I think for me this is really not an adventure to find the perfect way, but just adventure to find ways, right? I don't really care about the perfect optimal solution at this point, but I really love the journey to just figure things out and try it out, and this is better and this is worse and this has worked and this didn't, and then I really just want to explore. I think that if I look back, like much of my obsession, I guess, with little fine details here and there, is really comes from a very simple place of I just want to see what else we can do. So it was really never the way of let's figure out the perfect design process. Let's figure out the perfect way to do X or to do Y or to achieve something. And I think we're also obsessed with efficiency that at the end of the day, what I'm really curious about is just I know I wouldn't say really having a good time, but really having a meaningful, pleasant experience by doing something that you love and you enjoy and all of that. I think that efficiency is, of course, in many scenarios very important, very critical, but I really do want to take things slowly every now and again because of course it's just probably like the antithesis to what I have right now because I kind of jump into all kind of projects in the September and all of that, so I don't even have time to enjoy the selection of a watermelon. But when I go in that supermarket, I really take it all the pleasure in really choosing and knocking and figuring out, and then this kind of becomes a whole story for me. The same goes for coffee. We can spend a lot of time about coffee, and I went to barista class that my wife got me in, and it was such a remarkable experience. Imagine me who pretends to know things about coffee, at least this is what I believe for a long time. And then I walk in that room, and there are three people who are training for the world championship and as baristas.
Wow.
And they're
Okay.
talking about things I have no idea about. And then, at some point, Jeremy, it's a bit too late to say that, hold on for a moment, what you're talking about, right? It's a bit too
You're
late.
in too deep.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and they already assume that you just know and you're one of them, at least local championship or something.
Why would he be here
And
otherwise?
don't I look like a local champion in coffee making, Jeremy?
Yeah. You do. You
Yeah,
do.
you
You
see,
do.
this is what I thought too. Well, I was very wrong. And they speak about things which are totally out of control. But that journey for me, that's the exciting part. And I think that when we are learning, when we're trying to understand something, there is often, at least this is kind of my view on this, I think that very often there is a strong desire to find the ultimate answer. But I think the best part about design is that there are so many right answers. There are some bad answers and maybe kind of not very constructive answers, but there are a lot of options of what you can explore. And it's this journey that really keeps me extremely motivated and engaged. And I really like the journey, sometimes even more than the end result, to be honest.
I love that so much. And, as you were just talking, I just thought about something too that kind of made me think about just relating this back to work. And I hate to be the party pooper, by the way, bringing this back to design. But when you're in that room and you felt, I don't want to say ashamed. I don't put words in your mouth. You didn't say that, but you feel not good enough or imposter syndrome, perhaps. We get this a lot of times at work. We're sitting in a meeting, especially, I know you work in enterprise. I've worked in enterprise a long time. A lot of acronyms and things, the insider language and the lingo. And because you're sitting in that room, everyone assumes you belong here, right? No one thinks you're not supposed to be here. So they use that language and then you feel out of place. And at a certain point, you're afraid to speak up because you don't want to look like an idiot. You don't want to look like an outsider. And that we do that so often. And I think it just sort of reinforces, for me at least, the idea that, there's nothing wrong with being a person who doesn't know,
Yeah.
and thinking back to your journey to find the many ways, I won't even say perfect, but the many ways to slice a watermelon, embracing that idea of the unknown and owning it and saying, I don't know, help me.
Yeah, I think to me personally, there is it's such a strong, how would I even put that best? But I think that there is so much strength in being able to say, hold on for a moment, can you explain that to me, please? So we're all on the same page. if anything, it actually produced this desire to really listen in, and people actually understand and value that. And every now and again, I will end up in a situation where you just really don't understand the specifics, and very often you end up in a domain that you have no idea about, and you kind of want to feel like your voice matters, and in the end, you're doing the work. You might not understand everything about a particular domain, but you kind of really try to make a difference and help, and so on and so forth. And what I found to be extremely helpful, and this has been, to be perfectly honest, it's been quite a revelation to me. Actually asking for help, or asking to clarify, or asking to explain people to you is incredibly bonding. Incredibly bonding. This is by making yourself a bit more vulnerable. I think in many ways people really want to help. I mean, I really believe strongly that despite the fact that we believe that everybody is obsessed with themselves and they care about only the thing, I really disagree. I really believe that a lot of people, if they can help, they will help unless they're preoccupied and their life is in really bad condition, right? If people in a relatively stable, although maybe suboptimal situation, they want you to help. They want to help you. They want you to succeed. And in the same way, we kind of forget about that, and we kind of almost feel ashamed again to ask for help. This has been so valuable and so important for me to just get that. So even when you walk in a big room, and even if there are people with ties and people who speak much more eloquently than I ever could, we always forget that these are people that might be a little bit older than us, they might be a bit younger than us, they might be having different education and so on. But they are ultimately all people who actually want something decent or good. Sure enough, they want something for them. But I don't believe, and I kind of reject to believe, that this is the only thing that they actually want. At least for most people and most acquaintances, and even most meetings that I'm in. So that would be kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I love what you're saying too, because as I'm thinking about this, one of the things that I'm also thinking, like tying it back to your experiences with the baristas and cutting watermelons and anything else, coffee, things like that. Something that I think a lot of people, especially junior designers, when they get into a career, they are intimidated by executives, by stakeholders. This person has power. They are in charge. They're important. And so they get really nervous talking to them, and then they're afraid of them. But these people are just people. And I think it's important for us to realize that we're all on the same team, right? We're all on the same team. They're not out to get us. If we fail, their company fails. They fail, right? And so they're more likely to want to help us, and most likely, I would assume, be very excited and happy that someone is excited and interested and enthusiastic about learning their business or learning their domain. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, they pay money for you to be successful, right? They don't pay money for you to fail, right? So we shouldn't be forgetting that.
And you're just thinking back to you're tying this back to your experience, right? You went to a barista class expecting to learn. Imagine how much more you're going to learn from those people that are good enough to be in the world championships of, the barista challenge or something like, that's amazing. But like, if you don't take that opportunity and you don't talk to them because you're nervous and you go back into yourself and you become an introvert, not to say introverts are bad, by the way, but if you end up not taking advantage of that experience, those people, you'll probably never have access to those people again.
For sure.
And so, being curious, letting them know, hey, I'm new. My wife signed me up for this because she thought I'd like it, and then they're like, oh, wow, come on.
Well, frankly, this is the kind of the thing, right? So in the barista class, I did not say that I'm new, right? Until they figured it out, because it was a little bit too late for me at this point, because I didn't know them and they didn't know me. So they were kind of assuming that, we're all on the same boat. By the way, Jeremy, sorry to reroute the conversation. Okay. What is the most important ingredient of a good coffee?
Good water.
Very good. This is what I learned. But they told me that there is a special water, and there is a very special magnesium-enriched water that they need to get. And it's only when you get that water when you can actually start talking about the hand movements, when you actually pour the water, right, for filtered coffee, right, and the speed of that as well. And I've been training now. So I'm very, very good at kind of doing, that's a separate conversation, right? But yeah, so water is really, really important. And they were talking about this as if it was something that I learned 20 years ago. I was like, water? Yeah, sure. Water matters. I get that. That makes sense. So yeah, but you always learn something new. That's the best part. I came kind of back from this experience as a different person, and I learned something as well. And it was great. It was wonderful.
Total sidebar. We're going off in tangents today, which is totally fine. But I recently read about, I think it was in New York maybe, there's a water bar where, and there's like a sommelier for water where, they taste and they cup and they smell just like they would for like a
Wow.
sommelier for wine. And they can tell like what area of the world the water comes from and stuff just from tasting and smell. It's amazing.
Jamie, now that we go into this dimension, oh wow, this is like, because there are two more things that are really fascinating. There is I just noticed there was a big announcement of a USB powered knife.
I saw that. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It uses like sonic waves or something.
Sonic waves,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if you have, let's say, any kind of situation where you have butter that's really sticky, that's not going to happen because, again, the blade is kind of rotating at 44,000 times a second, things like that. And then there is something really incredible. I will never forget that day. So just as I'm obsessed about watermelons, I'm also obsessed about ironing. I really do ironing. So this is like a replacement for yoga or so for me. And I take ironing very seriously. I mean, very seriously, to the point that there is a wonderful hotel, and it's not a hidden advertising or anything of that kind, but there's a wonderful hotel in Toronto called Saint-Germain Hotel, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know, it's just a 3-star or something hotel, right? And, in that hotel, they also have a ironing room. Right? And I was like, okay, well, obviously, I want to enjoy my experience. I'm going to go to the ironing room. So I went, but this is not just an ironing room, Jeremy. No.
Tell me about it.
This is an ironing museum, right?
Wow.
They had 12 different irons from different decades and times. And I'm not sure how many I tried, but oh my, I stayed there for 3 hours. I re-ironed and unironed and re-ironed almost everything that I had just to try them out. This was incredible. I mean, it's really fascinating. So we can also talk about the perfect way to iron a shirt or so. There are also around 8 established ways. You can also YouTube it. There is a very good tutorial, I think at 1.5 hours tutorial on ironing. Highly recommend it.
I am learning so much today, by the way.
Well,
This is
is
one of
just
my
a start.
favorites so far.
We just getting started. It's just going on for like the next 9 hours.
I love this, dude. We're only 20 or 30 minutes in. I don't know what this edited out will be, but 20, 30 minutes in, and this is already my favorite interview I've ever done all the years I've been doing interviews. So let me ask you something. Ironing,
Don't you dare tell me that you're a steamer.
This is what I was going to ask you. Okay.
Steaming. No.
Do you use the steam
You
or
can
do you
use
no
steam.
steam?
No. You can use a steamer, but it's I wouldn't say it's cheating. It's just, you always have these parts on the top, right, top area next to your neck, which will still suffer from wrinkles, right? And don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm obsessed with ironing and I would iron everything every day. This is not quite how I am, and sometimes I'm just lazy, and so, there are unironed days. I promise you, there are unironed days, but I try to limit them as much as I can, right? But yeah, no, I'm taking a stand against the steamers. Yeah.
All right, good to know. My washing machine has like a steam function where it like connects to the water, and you could throw it in the dryer, and it'll dry the heat, and then it'll shoot a little bit of steam. And
I can see that, but
if I were to ask you, that defeats the purpose, because for you it's the Zen, it's the meditation of moving your hand, similar to which as I'm doing the thing, similar to pour over. Maybe there's a connection here. Dude.
Yeah. There is a lot of similarity. I actually love it. Every morning is going to start with that, and even if it takes 5-10 minutes or so, right? Because it depends on how you do it. There are also a couple of other different techniques in that. I enjoy it. This is sort of it. And I think personally, that what really helps me is, whenever I have some challenge and I have something in front of me, I don't know how to solve a problem or anything like that. It's really, we've probably all been in this situation, but I really need something for the eye or for the mind to be experienced as a pleasant experience. What I mean by that is I need to go in a coffee shop. We have a nice coffee shop around, and it's really bright blue, and one room is bright green, and every time I walk in, you just, oh my God, this is like a different world altogether. And then you have the music and the plants and the coffee and all of that. And just, you might say, well, you're going there for 45 minutes or so. That also takes some of your time. I think that this is how I find I guess not only just inner peace, right, but also just clarity. This is where clarity comes in because you're relaxed. I believe that clarity comes from that place rather than from the place of stress and working and figuring out every individual detail, right? And I guess the same goes also for other things, again, like also ironing, right, or coffee. I mean, many of us, I think, experienced this before when you just find something interesting, something to learn. And I don't mean like work or professional related, right, stuff, but just something, oh, I want to learn this now. And I want more of moments like that, which just bring me joy.
It's interesting you bring this up too. But I don't know if you have kids. I have kids. I have two kids. I have a
Not yet.
9-year-old and a 7-year-old. And my 9-year-old right now is learning all kinds of stuff about math and like division and all the long division and all that crazy stuff without calculators, obviously. And it's, for a 9-year-old, it's challenging, it's stressful. They get graded on these tests, so he's stressed out. He's worried he's going to get a bad grade. And all of these things stress him out. And then he doesn't learn the material.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the thing that you're saying here, I love this because thinking about this, and not just work for sure, but in general, when you find something that you just enjoy, in your case, ironing, coffee, cutting a watermelon, whatever it is, you want to learn more about it. You're excited about it. Like if same goes for like summer reading. When I was a kid, I don't know if you did this in school. You were assigned a book to read, and I would read 1,000 other books. My son does the same thing. He reads all these other books except the one he's supposed to read.
Well, yeah, that sounds familiar.
And then he waits to the last minute. And, he's stressed out. He only has a few days to finish this book. He's got a test on it when he gets to school to see if he actually read it. And, of course, he doesn't pay attention. He rushed reading through it. He didn't pay attention. And he's stressed out. He didn't retain the information. And he gets a bad grade. And I think there's so many metaphors there, though, for just not only the way we learn, but the way we retain. What's the point of learning if you don't retain the information?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I guess we just need to understand how we think and how the mind works for me. I mean, I always get very confused, and my wife always asks me, why do you need to finish everything in the last minute? Why do you need to make your slides the last minute? Why do you need to finish that email the last minute? And I think, but this is how I do things best, right? This is just, I really need this sense of not urgency, but maybe just a little bit of this excitement, I guess. Okay, so I need to finish it now, and what happens now? I need to make it fresh. I need to make it look interesting, and I need to rethink it. And sometimes I would really do things last minute. But this is kind of the exciting part. I really just enjoy it. And so I would leave that thing that I need to finish, and this is, has the highest priority all the way till the end. Not procrastinating, I guess, at this point, just doing something else that I need to do as well. But that thing, the most important thing, is always in here. Kind of really, I have to be careful to really get it on time, and I will, but I will do it last day, right? This is, I'm not sure. I guess this is just how many of us maybe think. How do we do things? And maybe also this is how we get our excitement, right? Because you need to. I find it very difficult to just say, okay, this time 9 o'clock till 10 o'clock, you're going to write this report. Or I'm going to, I don't know, move pixels around in Figma. I can't do that. I will wake up and I will decide that I want to, I don't know, I want to read about, I don't know, the best shavers or whatever, anything like that. I don't know. So how can I say that I'm going to do that at 9 o'clock? I mean, sure enough, if I have a meeting, I'll be in that meeting, right? But for me, like in my calendar, it's a mess, Jeremy. It's a total mess. I think I have a lot of structure around some things, but definitely not my calendar. So, but that kind of, I try my best not to drop things and, get everything done on time. But I guess we just need to know how we all think. And we're all different, and this is beautiful and wonderful, and we should actually embrace that. There is no need to enforce structure if you are more productive in a slightly more chaotic way.
I totally agree. Now, I'm the same way. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a kid. Have you? We don't need to get into it if you don't want to talk about it.
I don't know.
Have you ever been diagnosed?
Frankly, I don't know if I've never been diagnosed, but I never even checked, to be honest.
Really? Okay. Because what I'm hearing you say is very similar to me. I'm the same way. If I'll wait till the last minute for stuff that kind of not as big of a deal to me, but even big deal. Like if I'm doing a conference in a couple of weeks. Haven't written that yet. I'm doing a keynote, and I've got actually 2-3 days from now. Actually, value UX. I think you have a talk coming up.
That's right.
I'm doing a workshop. I've got some material already put together, but I haven't put the whole thing together yet. Don't tell anybody. And so, I kind of do the same. I sort of wait until the last minute. But then there's other things. I'll just get like laser focused on
Right. So that
and
something comes
excited.
in. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, like for
Absolutely.
instance, my kid is in Cub Scouts, and I'm making some merch for them to sell for fundraiser, like cups and mugs and hats and T-shirts, and I've been like focused on that and doing that at night when I should be doing 1,000 other things. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember vividly. I think the best talk I've ever given, at least from what I remember, maybe conference organizers would remember it differently, but I think the best talk I've ever given was in Zurich. It was, I believe, in 2015, maybe 14. And I remember it vividly because I thought, oh my, this is how can I even do that? So there was a big festival, music festival that was happening before. And obviously it was going through the entire night. And I thought I'd just drop by and see what it's like and all of that. And I stayed until the end, until something like 6:30 in the morning. This was, oh my, this was an incredible night. It was like all the good bands and teachers. It was really, really wonderful. I really enjoyed the hell out of it. And I remember coming back because it was quite away from the hotel, quite far from the hotel, coming back around 7:30. And then on the way back, kind of just checking on the phone or something. So when is my thing? Is it tomorrow? Oh, it's 1 hour from now.
oh no,
Uh, yeah, so that seems to be about right. So I got just stormed in the hotel room. And guess what? I did not have my shirt ironed, so I had to take a jumper. I remember that. And then I went all in, and I didn't sleep the entire night. Oh my, this was the most exciting talk I've ever given, I think. I had so much passion. Oh, I really carried everyone with me. And I think that these sort of things sometimes just, happen. And I vividly remember this. I really want to give everything in this talk, like everything I could, right? And then right after this, I think right about lunchtime, I fell asleep. But that was kind of afterwards, right? And
I love that dude.
and I think some it's kind of I guess it's those things sometimes that really bring you again. Maybe that's coming back to clarity. You might think, well, you didn't sleep the entire night. How can you even have clarity? But I think if you really experience joy and you do something positive for other people, with other people, right? I think that it has just a lot of potential to really find something which people benefit from and you also can deliver, right? And so if I have a chance to do something maybe little or meaningful that really gives other people joy, me as well, then I'll definitely go for it.
Now, speaking of joy, let's shift the conversation a little bit to enterprise UX design,
Well, if this is not joyful, I don't know what is.
which arguably many people would say does not bring joy. I personally, I don't know how you feel, but when it comes to enterprise, I find enterprise incredibly rewarding, helping someone to do their work more efficiently, more effectively, in less time without the headache. So when they get off work, they don't go home and they're in a terrible mood and yell at their family and everything else. I find that to be incredibly rewarding. But when you think about enterprise UX design, and I think back to your journey to find the perfect, not perfect, the many ways to slice a
There are
watermelon.
many ways to slice a watermelon, yes.
The many ways to slice a watermelon. But when it comes to enterprise software, we generally just default to what everyone else does, what we've always done. There's not a lot of innovation there. And I like to think about it, this sort of side tangent, I like to think about it sort of like enterprise like one-ply toilet paper, right? Like you go to an institutional bathroom, one-ply toilet paper, you go up to the CEO's corner office. I guarantee you there's a four-ply toilet paper up there because the CEO is never going in the employee bathroom. But when it comes to enterprise design, it's often just the default thing. And when I think about work and I think about your journey to find the many ways to slice a watermelon, you didn't stop at that first way you've always done it. You went out and you looked for other ways. And I'm curious, any lessons there for us as it relates to how to take that mindset to work, especially like enterprise, because I think
Yeah.
that's where, see this commercial software we tend to take more pride in the craft, but when it comes to enterprise we don't. So I'm curious what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, I think for me the most rewarding part is actually very similar to what you have as well. So I think that if I can make a difference, even if it's a small thing, like I don't know, as problematic area, people make a lot of mistakes or anything of that kind. That really definitely gives me some. Well, it's a very rewarding experience. It feels like you're actually making a difference in people's lives who cannot choose the tool that they're actually using every single day, right? I think If I look into options, what we could be doing and how to make it work, and compare it again with the selection, the many journeys of the watermelon, for me, really, the crucial part is that every person who I'm dealing with, every person who happens to be involved in a project, stakeholder of any kind, senior stakeholders, management, and so on, they have their interests, they have their other priorities, they have stories, they have their own things. And when I look at something like an org chart, I always see obviously people, but these are people who have very different, often very conflicting interests, priorities, desires, but they also have a shared goal. They all want a project to be successful. They all want the business objectives to be reached, all that. And so they all have something in common. We just tend to focus so much on what we are different in, right? And so what my journey often is I really try to explore these different paths and different areas and different journeys and interests, and basically just understand what do they want from this, because in the end it's kind of this journey again for me to find almost like this key between the different priorities and different interests and different perspective that different people bring to the table, and then unite it in some way. It's something that would actually work. And very often, as you're saying, it will become kind of this commodity tool that everybody else is using anyway, right? But I still believe that within any tool that people are using, if you have good people and good culture and reliable team and kind of that actually has this sense of sincerity and vulnerability and trust embedded in the team values, they can move mountains even with the most horrible tool they ever had, right? I really strongly believe that. So in many ways, what I try to do is to identify something that we can still do in this environment to really bring value, to deliver value, but more like being on a journey with the team and whoever else is involved, right? And for me, this is sort of the same story. I'm really just exploring how to get to that place where we all reach that goal together, right? And I think that very often it's just coming from the place of really trying to bring people together rather than focus on what makes us different. Which, perfectly honest, to be perfectly honest, very often is very difficult because a lot of people have been burned. Just a couple of months ago, I was in the meeting, and sometimes you can just tell the experience that you're going to expect in the project. You know, this kind of comes up in, for example, when you jump in a meeting and most of the people in the call have camera off and muted, right? If it's one person, of course, it happens. You might be on a way somewhere and so on, so that's totally understandable. It's perfectly fine. But in every meeting, you see maybe 10 out of 15 people being camera off, muted, and really not participating. It doesn't tell me that they are bad people in any way. That's not the point. The point is, what it tells me is that these people have been burned in the past. It's probably they don't even believe that this project can be successful. And they maybe had some very similar projects in the past where they feel like this is not going to go anywhere anyway, right? And so once you encounter that, I find it as a challenge, but also as an extremely rewarding journey to turn it upside down somehow. Because this really doesn't just change, that end product that we're designing for internal employees, let's say, but also the team culture. And then if they do gain trust, which of course can be very slow and very difficult to reach, well, if they do gain trust and work together in the end, then it's much more rewarding than anything else.
And again, just like sort of thinking through your journey to find the many ways to make coffee and watermelon and all the irons and different techniques. I'm sure we could, like you said, we could talk for hours about that alone. The same, I think, goes for stuff like that. What if I try this approach? What if I try that approach? How can I, that thing I said didn't land, but is there another way to do it? And instead of banging your head against the wall and trying to like shake people and say, why can't you listen to me? When it comes to large orgs, often designers, especially junior designers or even senior level individual contributors, they often don't have a lot of influence and they don't even have a lot of control. But there's still ways, I think, to influence your team, and taking that approach like you're talking about and saying, how might we
Yes.
influence this decision? How might I crack that egg there, that one person who feels burned, and what can I do to get them to open up and be excited about
Yeah.
this thing again? Is there some way I can do that?
I think one thing that we often forget, and I always try to keep track of that, and I highly encourage everyone to kind of do the same. There are usually in every company, in every team, there are some well-known bottlenecks and problems that everybody just knows of, right? And if you're coming in and you look at what can be improved, what I always try to find is something that actually affects a lot of people, where maybe a small change, a little tiny change could actually make an impact in the company, right? Because I actually need to build some confidence and trust in me, right? When I kind of walk in a new project or so. And so there is one thing that everybody really cares about and everybody wants to be better. And that's usually meetings, right? Meetings affect everyone. And everybody is, has been in a conversation where somebody mentioned, well, we have too many meetings. Of course, we have too many meetings, but sometimes you need meetings, so you just need to be better. So if you can make meetings a little bit better, a little bit more structured, just just in a way that people will notice, then you can bring a lot of people on your side. And this is how small shifts in culture then happen through little things like that, daily rituals or weekly rituals, whatever it is that you have. And I'm not necessarily speaking about, those team building activities where everybody has to go somewhere, but little things that just happen at work where somebody realizes, oh, that's nice. That actually helps me. But just for that, we need to watch out for those things that are typically bottlenecks, slowdowns, or anything like that. You cannot address everything, but there are some things that are always there to be discovered. And this, I guess, as you have noticed, my journey is all about discoveries.
The other thing I'm thinking about too is learning the business, using that curiosity, because we often talk as designers how we need to explain our value and we need to sell the value of UX and bring, tie our work to an ROI and blah, blah, blah. And you can't do that if you don't understand how the business works, how the business makes money and things like that. And I think a lot of times when people think about enterprise, they think, just boring, complex, but boring and things like that. And I remember this conversation vividly. I worked for an ad agency for 4 or 5 years before I got a job at GE, General Electric, right? GE Power. And I ran into my old boss from the ad agency, and she's like, "What are you doing now?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a product designer at GE Power." And she goes, "Oh, you must be so bored." And I was like, "Are you kidding? This is like the most insane, complex, interesting work I've ever done. I know how a gas turbine works. Like, what do you mean? How is this boring? I get to go all over the world and go to shops and watch people handle these big heavy machines and do this really interesting work, really complex work. It's so interesting to me, and I think a lot of us when people compare jobs, I want to work at Fang, I want to work for Google or Meta or TikTok. But for me, I don't know, man. I just think the complexity in every enterprise is different. And not to say, by the way, that commercial is not interesting, but you know, finding that joy in uncovering insights, uncovering systems and complex systems and how complex systems work is it's to me rewarding in and of itself. And so I love taking that approach to finding all these ways that you've done things, to finding all these ways that your business makes money, and then you
But
can then just find like how are they losing money,
yeah,
how can I help them make more money or not burn as much money. So anyway, taking that same approach to just learning the business, I feel is just such an important lesson for people out there to learn.
yeah, and I think it's also kind of almost like a puzzle, right? So kind of untangling whatever it is that is in there, and you really enjoyed the little puzzles of I don't know whatever it was that you were playing when you were a child or so. I really love to play and figure out how to make that work. There are a couple of games that I really desperately was obsessed by. One of them, I don't know if this is even familiar to people or not. Maybe I'll drop a link later. It's called Sokoban. It was kind of a Japanese game. I have no idea. My father was a physicist, and so he had access to a computer. And there was this game that's called Sokoban in 1980. I mean, I don't know. I was maybe in 4 or 5, 89, maybe 1991. And this was a game which looked very, simple for modern standards, of course. But the only thing you need to do is you have a bunch of boxes. These boxes sometimes are stuck next to the wall. And you need to make sure that all the boxes are in the right place, right? And you need to move them, and you can move them only in a specific way, right? And as you move them, right, there are some things that are possible. Some of them are too heavy to be moved, so you need to move something else first. Like a lot of little things like that. I was obsessed by it. I just couldn't stop, and I would try everything, and it was really difficult. It was really difficult. I mean, for me back then, when I was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't know how old, maybe a bit older, maybe 10, 11, I don't know. it was just, wow, how do I do that? In the same way, I spent ridiculous amount of time playing Prince of Persia. Do you
Oh
remember
yeah,
maybe that?
yeah.
Oh yeah, Prince of
Yeah.
Persia, I would be obsessed because I had to save the princess. I had only 59 minutes to save the princess, and I never saved the princess, Jeremy. I never made it. It was so weird, and it's the same kind of kept going, right? Kind of all the way in, because at some point in 2000s, I remember watching Lost. Have you watched Lost?
Oh yes. Very frustrated, by the way, by the how it
Yes,
ended. But
yeah.
yeah.
So I watched all of it, and sometimes I would watch multiple episodes twice just to understand what is going on exactly. And then, I don't know, a friend of mine mentioned, like maybe a month ago or so, that there is a big overview of everything that has happened in Lost, so it actually makes sense. And of course, I had to watch it. It was like a 2 hours video that I had to watch in
I need to
1.5
watch this.
speed to go through it to understand. And frankly, I'm still have no idea what happened
I
there.
don't know. I'm fairly sure they were just making
But
stuff
all
up.
of this just to say that all of them, all of those things just get me, I guess, indeed excited very much at what you're saying, right? So I find quite a lot of interest in just untangling things and figuring out the different pieces of a puzzle and really making things maybe a little bit better, maybe just a little bit better, right? Especially in situations where you have wonderful people around who are very talented and very actually supportive and do want to do something. And, if you also have just a common shared goal and everybody wants to help each other, that's a very rewarding experience. It's like playing a magnificent, difficult game and being rewarded for that too.
Yeah.
That's great.
Now here's this begs the question. All this talk of investigating and uncovering and digging deeper and things like that. Sometimes we just have to ship. I'm curious from your perspective. How do you balance that need to and that desire to uncover new insights or explore different ways so that you don't just go back to that default way to do a data table or something in your enterprise app? How do you find the balance there? Is there some method that you use or just like a gut feeling? How
No,
do
no,
you go
no.
about figuring that out?
Definitely not gut feeling. What I always try to do is I need to. So I kind of have this little exercise that I always do, right? When I jump in a project, it's important for me to have a very clear visual representation in my head about what is in front of me. And sometimes, you have this healthcare project or you have this public service project and kind of think out what would it look like as a building? Would it be like a palace with a lot of hidden rooms? Would it be more like a old building with a lot of legacy and all of that, with all the roof being broken and things like that? What would it be like? What would it look like, right? And when I go in there, I kind of have an understanding about what should I do to find a way to bring some order into this, right? And typically, I tend to be very pragmatic. So if there is, let's say, a big desire to ship and we need to ship and there is a reason for that, sure, we will be able to ship on time. We just need to define the scope and set expectations right and deal with changing scope and all of those things, scope creep and all of that stuff, right? We can ship based on what the team believes in and what we believe is right. But what I also try to always advocate, and sometimes it's not possible, right? But I always try to attach something to it. And that would be kind of understanding the impact of the work that we're producing. And just to kind of roll back about why I'm speaking about this now, because very often what I always try to spend enough time on is trying to understand how the business goal that we have here, that shipping of that thing, how does it actually loop back to what we're doing here? Now, every company wants to actually deliver value and then recapture that value back so it actually results in business, increasing business revenue and so on and so forth. So we need to deliver some value. And the question is, how do we measure that value that we're actually shipping? And so this is a conversation that I always try to initiate. How can we measure the impact of what we're working on here? And obviously, the better we do the work, the more we know about the customers, the more we know about the key cases and value cases and the problems and the challenges that they're experiencing, right? The better the outcome will be, right? And so for me, this path, this adventure, so to say, it can also be a very pragmatic and boring adventure too, but it's still exciting for me because I still try to figure it out, right? And so the path there lies, for me at least, in articulating to business stakeholders, right? How are we going to measure that value that we're going to deliver here, right? And if we can ship, if we need to ship, we will ship, but we still need to measure at least after we shipped, right? What is the impact of that, and maybe roll back or flip it or work on it or refine it, right? But sometimes you kind of have the goal in front of you, you just need to go. And so you need to do it to the best of your skills, expertise, abilities, and the team, right? Because it must go out.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I think I don't know. It's hard to tell a junior designer these things. I think it's something you learn as you go, which is again learning. It's doing, it's trying, it's failing, it's doing it better next time. Telling somebody. It's funny. Everybody always asks questions like this, and I ask questions like this in interviews. And junior designers are listening to this and stuff like that, but they're not gonna learn it until they just fail at it on their own. And I think that to me is like maybe the most important lesson in all of this. Learning how to, all the ways to slice a watermelon, don't shove the knife in that way because you're going to stab yourself in the finger if you're holding on this,
just please not with a Japanese knife. That's
or not with a Japanese knife. Make sure it's a little, that kind of stuff. I can warn somebody not to do it, but until they actually do it and almost cut their finger or whatever, my kids, like I could tell them not to touch the hot pan, they're going to touch it and then they won't learn until they actually do it. And I don't know. I think that's just like an incredible lesson too. Just trying it, seeing what works, do your best. And if you can't,
and show up, right? Because I think we all are very obsessed with finding the perfect solution, right? This is kind of coming back to what we spoke about in the beginning. But I think to me, it's not about the perfect process and the perfect methodology and the perfect framework, a perfect template, a perfect setup, a perfect whatever, right? Frankly, I don't think that it even exists because every company has something else that is really applicable and really relevant and really important for the case and where you're working. So if you ask the right questions, this is my remarkable methodology, if you like. I ask the right question, I listen very carefully, I listen to what is said and what is not said, and I try to be very, very cautious and careful by really tuning in what stays between the lines, right, as well. And then I think about it, and then I think a little bit more about this, and then I think about what could be done to actually fix it. I don't know if this sounds like a magnificent framework or anything, right? But this is sort of something that I really try to figure out. So I would ask really deeply, and I would really try to deeply figure out what kind of questions I need to ask. And obviously I do have some questions that I would always raise in consults and so on. And then I would really just try to digest all of that. And for me, again, this visualization about what is in front of me is really, really helpful. And sometimes it's actually quite visual, right? When I would be producing something that would be kind of representation of what we're planning to do here and so on and so forth. And sometimes it's just a sketch, maybe on paper, and sometimes it's just a Dropbox paper, Google Doc, right? But I need to express that thing, that my thinking. I can't keep it in my head, right? And by expressing how I think and what I'm thinking, kind of really helps to at least identify some things that maybe are wrong and are right and so on, and then have a conversation with the other team members about where we're going with this. And I'm not sure that if this is a valid design process by any means, right? But that's just something that I guess we all do in one way or the other, just trying to figure it out, right? That's all we do.
All right. So Vitaly, I've had you for quite a while now, a little over an hour. And before I get out of here, I want to ask you a few questions to help all of our listeners get to know you just a little bit better. But before we do that, just sum this whole conversation up. I just want to, you tell me if this is the right answer. If I were to ask Vitaly Friedman, the best way to slice a watermelon might just be, it depends. It's fair to say?
Yes, but if I had to choose, I do have a preferred method.
Oh,
that
okay.
just happens to be. Well, that would be the one when I actually cut in half first, then I flip it on the side so it leaves on it, like, lies in the belly. Then I cut horizontally or vertically. Then I cut horizontally, and then you have kind of the slices. But if you want to the cubes, but if you want to remove the kind of the what is it, like the green grind, right? If you want to remove that, well, then you don't do that. Then, well, once you sliced into the halves, right? Well, you basically do one extra trick. Again, this is maybe technique number 13. You basically take your sharp knife, right? And you actually just cut the flesh, like literally, like what would be vertically, right? Across that half, right? You cut it, right? You kind of, I wouldn't say you cut it. You just, well, you cut through it, right? But not entirely.
Right. Not all the way, so it
not all the way through.
Completely. Right,
and then you do the magic trick where you take your knife and then you pull underneath the flesh, right, all the way where the grind is, and you cut that grind thing all at once, and then you have all the perfect pieces of your watermelon without any grind, right? But then you still need to cut them in cubes. So that's more of a challenge then.
When you get a minute after this, it might send you down a YouTube rabbit hole. But there was a video that I saw. This was years ago. I think I ended up watching it somehow, watching another video. But it was a street vendor. I want to say India, Africa, maybe. I don't know. And he took one knife in one hand, had the half watermelon, and did this thing. And he was like, whoop, 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 zipping all through, and then just flipped it over, and the watermelon just fell out of the rind
yeah, this
into
makes
a bowl.
sense. That's pretty much what I do.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It
Nice.
was like, it was magical. I was like, oh my God, how did they do that? And it just, they still had the green rind and all that left. But anyway,
This is my
magical.
inspiration.
Magical.
Jeremy, my inspiration. Yes.
I love it. All right, Vitaly. So like I said, I have got 5 questions I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First thing that comes to your mind, you don't have to think too hard about it. What is your favorite non-design book?
Non-design book. So I think that there is this wonderful book by Ben Flipiak, I think is his name. And the book is called How Big Things Get Done. This is not necessarily a book for designers, but this is a book for, I guess, architects maybe, or product or project planners thing. But basically what the book is all about highlighting some of the challenges that big projects experience and when they fail and when they succeed, right? And it's kind of based on top research, like think about big airports, right, which are being built, or Olympics, or anything of that kind. These are massive projects which require significant effort, and getting anywhere there requires really just understanding what you're doing. So this is not a book for designers, but it's a book about how to think about these sort of projects to increase the chances of them being more successful. I can only recommend it. I think it's called How Big Things Get Done.
I love that. I could easily see that being very useful for enterprise designers, even startup designers.
I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah. I mean, you'll enjoy the hell out of it.
All right, it's on my list. I wrote it down. All right, next up, what is your favorite non-design podcast?
Non-design podcast. I think so. This is a funny story, but I've been listening to Monocle podcasts for many years. A friend of mine recommended me Monocle. Frankly, I don't even remember, the Monocle Daily or something. The sort of podcast all about news and all of that. And I would say grew up with them, but somehow I have been listening to them for a very long time. But what I like to listen to is actually exclusively, sorry about that, Jeremy, non-design related podcasts and non-UX, non-front-end and non-web, because I want to be challenged. And what I always like to subscribe to is people who I strongly disagree with. Just so I get their point of view. And I don't talk about like political views or anything of that kind. But I would say specifically people who have a very opposing point of view. If I strongly believe, let's say, in the value of aesthetics, there might be people who value it's all about metrics. It doesn't matter what it looks like. And I want to hear that argument. I want to understand and I want to challenge myself to think twice about if they're right or am I wrong, right? So this is always what I'm really trying to find out. So if there is somebody I disagree with, chances are high I'll be subscribing to the podcast. So unfortunately, we have a little bit too much in common, Jeremy. But it's subscribing nevertheless.
So if I started a podcast about the joys of ironing with steam.
You got me there. Yes. I will be there, and I will leave mean comments.
All right, just don't leave a negative review. Just you can comments. Just no negative. The algorithm hates those negative.
So we'll be expecting a new podcast show emerging within the next couple of weeks, dear friends.
All right, so if you're listening and you're out there and you iron with steam, holler at me. We'll come on.
Hold on, Jeremy. There is no ironing with steam. There is a steaming and there is ironing. We don't mix those things.
Fair enough. You know way more about this than me. I trust you wholeheartedly.
Fair enough. That's
especially as it comes here. All right, next up. What is your favorite meal? Now, you sound to me, our brief conversation here, sound like a foodie. So I imagine you might have a hard time with this one. Favorite meal? Something you've cooked or had at a restaurant? Grandma used to cook?
Definitely going to be sushi. That's for sure. Or donburi. I mean, I'm a big fan of Japanese food for sure. So I think it's kind of ironic because every time I go somewhere and I'm in a location and then I open Google Maps, I guess it knows me too well, so it's always going to suggest some sort of Japanese, Taiwanese, Korean, Thai, but it never suggests, I don't know, other things, right? So it's always that. So I guess I got trapped. So I'm just following along
Now
them.
you travel a lot for work, but do you get good sushi? I assume Berlin. You live in
Oh
Berlin,
yeah.
right, Germany?
Oh, I
Good.
know my places. So, well, actually, my wife is very good at this. So she's our Kivarius or bookkeeper of all the places. I think that in Berlin alone, she has something like 150, 180
Oh wow,
places marked on the
good lord.
map. And then everywhere we go, well, we keep track. So and sometimes we come back, right? So that's funny because in the past I would be a person who never comes back. I always want to go forward. I want to explore something new. But sometimes there is a value of actually coming back and reliving that experience if it's nice and you maybe have even memories or anything like that. This is wonderful.
Now, sushi seems like something that I would imagine you've gone down the rabbit hole trying to make your own sushi at home, or do you just not even bother?
I'm not great. I mean, we do have a Japanese knife, right? So, but I mean, we're pretty good, I guess, in salmon and rice, and we know where to get sushi rice and all of that. But I think that some of the Japanese masters they train for decades, so we are not even. Oh, I'm not even close. My wife is much better than me.
Faith in you. I think you can do it. All right.
Well, at least somebody does.
I'm surprised though, but
I should. Well, maybe this should be the next thing I'll do
all right.
right after
Let me know. I'll
this.
have you back, and we'll talk about how your journey to learn the perfect sushi roll has
Sounds
inspired
wonderful.
you in the next iteration of your education. All right. Next up, what is your favorite vacation spot?
Oh, this is also a difficult one. So I know exactly. Yes, I know exactly. I mean, I don't even know if it's actually a vacation spot or so, but I think that there is one city that really inspired me and that I found incredibly beautiful in its own charming way. And it's usually not on the list of people who do travel to places. But for me, if I get a chance to come back, I will be there in a second, right? And obviously, there are beautiful places like Copenhagen and Stockholm and so on, and and Antwerp is one of my favorite cities in Belgium. But I think if I went to a specific city for vacation, for me, there is no better place than, and this is where drum roll comes into place, something like that. There is no better place than Naples in Italy.
Ah, okay.
I don't know anybody who actually told me that they would go to Naples, that they were going to Naples, maybe accidentally or so, right, on the way to Amalfi Coast and so on and so forth. But Naples to me is such a magnificent city in it's just life. You can feel life happening there in all its weird and busy and strange and beautiful and simple ways. I'm just in love with Naples.
Now I've been in Naples, Florida. Never been in Naples, Italy. But
Yeah.
I would imagine it's not a giant tourist look. I mean, there's tourists there, I'm sure, but it's not like Rome where you're just
No,
like
no, no.
covered in just
Yeah, that's
tons
right.
of tourist traps and things like that. So
Well, maybe
I
this
love
is
that kind of stuff.
all going to change after this
Yeah,
podcast. Who knows?
the thousand people who
Everybody
listen.
goes to Naples now. But I mean, seriously, I mean, actually, you will be surprised if you go there, dear friends who are listening this, you'll be very, very surprised how incredible and memorable the experience can be there. Not to mention the food, which is out of control.
Oh yeah, I've never been to Italy. It's on my list. My family is from Sicily.
Mm.
My grandfather is from Sicily,
Hmm.
and we still have family there. And my whole family, my mom's side of the family, they all took a trip to Italy 5 years ago.
Hmm.
Didn't invite me. I didn't get to go.
That's okay.
Jerks. But yeah, they no, I'm kidding. They got to go to Italy and go hang out in Pisciquino in Sicily. Not well, it's close. Where's Naples? Naples is south or north? I can't remember.
South, south.
South, yeah. So it's like kind of close
Yeah,
to
should
Sicily.
be.
But anyway, I want to go. It's on my list. It's on my bucket list. One day I will
Please,
get out
please do. Let me know when you go. I'll send you all the
Send me
places.
a
We
list.
have a
You
big
got a
list.
list? All right. Yeah, I'll do the same. You ever come to Cincinnati? I'll do the same. I'll send you a
No
list of Cincinnati.
worries. Got that covered.
All right, awesome, Vitaly. So this has been an amazing conversation. I learned a lot. This has been one of my favorite, dare I say, favorite interviews I've ever done so far. Before we get out of here, man, let everybody know where they can find you, all the stuff you got going on, and your courses and everything else. You got a new one coming out, Designing for AI soon. Let everybody know about your courses, where they can find you, and give yourself a plug, man.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Jeremy. So basically, I spend, I think, a little bit too much time on LinkedIn. So I post quite a few things about UX and design and things that I'm going through life professionally in there as well. So feel free to follow along if you like. Beyond that, indeed, there are a couple of courses that I've launched already. There is a Measure UX one. If you want to dive deeper into the business and connecting the business goals with design initiatives, you will find it on Measure UX. It's measure-ux.com. right? There's also another one on smart interface design patterns, but there is also a new one that will be coming on maybe within a week, maybe within 2 weeks, I hope, which is all about design patterns for AI interfaces. I'm very excited about that. A lot of really surprising stuff, because we usually think about AI being just a text box, a smart, intelligent, but also fragile, unreliable, and extremely verbose text box, right? And I want to change that. And so this is kind of a lot of research that I've been doing over the last 2 years, all now in the new course. So that's coming in soon. So please stay tuned. And please do subscribe to Jeremy's wonderful podcast, because he was so kind to invite me this time around to speak about, God forbid, watermelons. That never happened in the
I don't know,
history of
dude.
the
This was good.
humankind.
This is. I think we can all learn a lot from your quest to find the many ways
Obsession,
to slice a watermelon. Quest. We'll say quest.
Quest sounds good too.
But I will say this real quick. I did get a sneak peek at that AI designing for AI interfaces, and I thought it was very good. I would say I don't have a course. I've never done a course. I at some point might try to do one on like ambiguity, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, stuff like that. VUCA. If I ever had a course, I would model mine after yours to try like just the ambiance and the way you structure it. It's honestly, I will say this: your courses are some of my favorite courses. Just the way you approach learning and the way you approach explaining things. I think it's wonderful. If you're listening and you're on the fence, for the love of God, just pay the few dollars. It's not even a lot, and it's good stuff.
It's very kind of you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for saying that.
Awesome. All right, Vitaly. Well, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. This was a blast.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I mean, if you ever want to speak about sushi, well, maybe I should take it seriously. Now that you said that, this is it. This is going to be the project. I'm going to report it, and I'm going to report my findings and my experiences about the perfect ways. I take it as a challenge.
All right. I can't wait. I can't wait for the follow-up. We'll have you back on at some point when you're ready.
Fantastic. I'll report back to you when I know more. Thank you so much for having me.
See you, dude.
And thanks so much for listening, everyone.